Not a bad idea. Maybe that's there's a couple. So, Joe, stay with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Allie, if you will call us, please.
Neiman,
Present.
Underwood.
Here.
Brown. We have
Here.
virtual. Andrus.
Virtual. Summerfield, Florida.
Andrus. Yes, an excuse.
Yep. So, all right, we have a quorum. And we don't have any blue sheets or anything to add to it. Okay. One second. Sure. All right. In favor, say aye. 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 Opposed, same. Here. We have an agenda. Does anyone have a conflict of interest or any items on the agenda? Moves us to our first public comment. Kylie, if you could.
Any person may make an advanced appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. If an appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comments. Please state his or her name and address. The topic must be relevant to the road commission. Individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. The board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda.
Okay. We've heard the rules for public comment. Would anybody wish to speak in public comment? Please step up to the podium and give your name and let us have it.
All right. 3 minutes or I get 10 because I brought 2 people. I don't want 10. My name is Ken Nowicki. I'm CEO and owner of M&M Excavating in Gaylord. Address of the office 17 Old State Road, home address 1641 Shub Lane. I'm here to discuss the recommendation of award from GTCRC staff to Elmer's in lieu of M&M. Did you all receive the letter I sent today?
Yeah, we did.
So, as you saw, if you had time to review that, we were the as-read low bidder. However, Elmer's inserted a letter in their bid and offered a voluntary deduct to change the start date on the job, change the heart of the schedule. They shortened it up in the summer actually, but they also changed the sequencing to request to work on both roundabouts at the same time. It was clear in the contract documents that it said it in 2 locations that you could not start one roundabout and upset traffic until the other roundabout was complete. I gotta believe that was thought about during design. Sure, everybody would probably say it's going to be cheaper if they can go them both at the same time, but for the Motor Republic, they decided to bid it. You can only build one roundabout. The reason they even put the letter in the bid was because Addendum 2 came out. Someone asked a question, I believe it was Elmer's, because we didn't ask it and we're the only other bidder. Could the schedule be changed? And Addendum 2 said, if you want to change the schedule, please bid the job per the contract documents, but submit an additional bid with your proposed new schedule and tell us why it's better for the Road Commission and the Motor Republic. They did not submit us an additional bid, which the job had 150 paid them, so there's really nowhere where you would know where to take their $250,000 off the bid. And they also extrapolated the schedule into the construction sequencing, which is probably where most of the money is probably saved. The other big point is the job is set to start April 25th, and the Keystone Biting River intersection would be complete June 24th, prior to the 4th of July, prior to Cherry Festival. they're proposing not to start the job till after Memorial Day. Carry the job for 15 weeks, so that we assume their detour would be over 31 South Airport for all summer long, basically. We don't feel that's in the best interest of Road Commission or the Warrior Public. The other big issue in my mind is just the integrity of the closed bid system. Been doing this a long time, and I know I said in my letter that you guys have the right to award to anybody you want without prejudice. But in all my years, 30 years of doing this, 99.9% of the time goes to the as read or as checked a little bidder. It's just, if you want to risk having a one bid system here, I mean, it's going to really turn us kind of sour against, I mean, we put a lot of time into this bid, and we get lucky enough to get it, and actually pretty darn close. We'd like to do the job for you. And I think I did put in the letter that we just were red low on a job at the airport, and we left $300,000 to Elmer's where there was only two bids. So if it turns out that Elmer's is the only bidder in the future, you're going to pay for this over and over and over again. You could. And then if anybody has any questions, I mean, if they're not familiar with them, and then we just did the 2 roundabouts on 37 this past summer with Reef Riley, and Reef Riley will be on this team with us on this job. And we also did the when the terminal moved, we did the big job at the airport, all the parking lots, the roads, taxiway, the apron, back in 03 and 04. So we're very capable of doing the job. We'd like to do a great job for it. Anybody have questions?
Generally in the public, because it's public comment, we don't go back and forth, but I do appreciate your comments, and believe me, it was heard. Okay.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I tried calling on Monday, but as I couldn't get on the agenda unless I would have called Friday.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate it. Thank you. Any other public comment? Dan, you're on the schedule as an appointment.
Yeah, I am. I just want to make a public comment for myself.
Okay.
But it's okay. I just wanted to also kind of comment on the same matter, or at least related to the contract that's being proposed for the 2 roundabouts and the OHM contract for engineering. Just from a standpoint of a taxpayer, it's a little bit of a concern to see almost $4 million being put towards 2 roundabouts that include the engineering costs, when we're paying $4 million of millage. I know this isn't coming from the millage fund, but this is all going into, all this money is intended to go and improve our roads, and the roundabouts aren't going to improve the road surfaces, whether it's a local road or a primary road that really need addressed. So I'm just kind of a little concerned about whether the timing of these roundabouts is appropriate. And then the other comment I just wanted to kind of highlight is the $450,000 for engineering costs. As I recall, the last roundabout, the Road Commission had to outsource the engineering for that last roundabout because of the loss of one of its engineers that moved or left employment. And I know you're down another engineer, so Wayne is stretched thin. There was a comment made, I think, on trying to focus on hiring another engineer instead of outsourcing that activity. And I think there was one attempt to hire an engineer, and then that was jettisoned for some reason. I just think that $450,000 that's proposed to outsource engineering would be refocused towards hiring, at least 2 engineers and 2 technicians to assist those engineers and address these engineering needs in-house. So that is for consideration. Maybe the timing of this project is not appropriate given the fact that you've lost a couple engineers in the last couple months, and that's obviously a priority for the folks. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Any other public comments? Seeing none, let's move on to our list appointments. Bill? We're over by the door. I want to look over here because that's, yeah, even though we're turned around.
They're a little different. Well, I appreciate the new system, and you do have a lot more room for people. That's good. No cramp. Well, I'm here to kind of talk about the Boardman River Corridor PAL. We are in a wrap-up period now. The last public meeting was held last Wednesday. We had 2 public meetings, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. They were lightly attended, if I should say that. I appreciate you gentlemen from the board showing up, to one of you from each one of them. It was great. We had 5 people sign in for the first one and 5 people sign in for the second one. We did receive some comments. We received about a dozen comments, written comments at both total from both meetings. We got 7 additional comments on the website. The comments from the website were mostly in favor of what we're doing, what we've been proposing. We'll get into that in a minute. And the comments received at the public meeting were in opposition to. And most of those comments were mostly, we don't need a road, those kind of comments, focus on transit, those kind of things. Don't fit with the public, the purpose and need of this project. But anyway, we are at a point now where we have recommended what is being called the locally acceptable alternative, and it is the Hartman-Hammond alternative. The resource agencies and the feds and NDOT have concurred with our recommendation to eliminate or drop from consideration the Saban Dam and the Cass Road alternative. So we are moving forward with the Hartman-Hammond alternative as represented here. And as you recall, the east end is pretty well set, but the west end is still in flux a little bit. We have some engineering challenges on US 31 that are going to be the focus of the next phase. The next phase being the NEPA phase. We again, the concurrence of eliminating the or dropping from consideration those other 2 alternatives also comes with the concurrence from them that we can move forward with this alternative and the no-build alternatives into NEPA. So those are the only 2 alternatives that we plan on carrying forward. Before we do that, before we move into that, we have to button up the document. Documenting all of the actions that have happened in the past, summarizing all the public meetings, all the alternatives, all the impacts. We just have to assemble it all. We're going to run it through staff, then we're going to run it through you. No, actually, we're going to run it through MDOT and the Federal Highway Administration before we bring it to you, because we want to make sure we're aligned properly. Won't go out to the public until after, until after you guys have looked at it and reviewed it. And once we do that, and it becomes accepted by the feds, and then we move into NEPA, where we not necessarily do it again. We do it more detail, but we're only focusing on this alternative. So it's an exciting time. Concluding the roughly 15, 16 months worth of study analysis. It's not, to be honest with you, the team didn't figure we'd be up here, to be honest with you, with Cass Road there. We kind of started this thinking it was going to be difficult to get to this. But when we get to analyzing all of the impacts, all of the benefits, this rises to the top. Kind of as it did before, but this is a different project. And that's one of the things that we continually say to people that challenge this and say, oh, you're doing it again. Well, we're not doing it again. It's a totally different project.
Do the math a different way, so to speak.
Well, in a way, but the biggest difference, obviously, as you know, is in the Boardman River corridor, the basin. The previous project was a fill project and a small bridge. This one, this project is a high bridge, and it minimizes to the greatest extent possible.
Signature crossing.
Well, signature crossing is a good way to put it. So I'm here to answer questions, give you updates. I think I've done the update. If there's any questions on from the board on moving forward. We plan on, we'd like to come to the board at the next meeting and present our document, but I'm not sure we can run it through staff, then through MDOT, then through you before we do that. So it might be May before we come in here with our final document to present to you on a formal basis. So after that, well, I won't talk about after that until after we get through this. This is our primary focus right now, is completing the PAL.
Hey, Carl, you have anything for Bill?
No, I'm pleased to hear that, you know, how it's going and that we've jumped through those other hurdles and we're in that next phase. I think they've done OHM has done a great job for us.
I appreciate that, Carl.
Joe? Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
You're welcome. And give me
Yep.
a minute to just serve you while I get out of here.
It's like a library here, isn't it?
All right, our next appointment is Tom Slater, subject of recording of the board meetings.
Good evening, commissioners and new commissioners. 2 years ago, last month I was here, and I would like you to consider a motion and approval to reactivate my video services. I hope you have my little note in your packet. It would be under the same considerations as have been on file since 2009. And I provide a DVD to the public access television station, which would be channel 191, not 189, as I have in your paper, 191. The next day, and then I provide a DVD to the road commission, although I see some things have changed since I was here last. I can be available for your regular meetings and for your special meetings. And with the board's approval, I can start next month. I'll put this meeting on me. And if you decide not to renew my agreement, it's still on me, but it will be on channel 191 government. So I'm asking for a motion and approval. And I'm here for questions. And if you need time to discuss this over the next 30 days, that's okay too.
Yeah, for me, I'd appreciate that. I want to talk about that because when we do have, I mean, when we're looking at, we do have the Zoom now, which has kind of become a part of what we do.
Yes.
And you know, I'm sympathetic to you, and I have no objection to this, but I do want to talk to the other. I'd like to talk to management too and see what they think about it, because I mean, clearly it would get us out a little bit more. I mean, we're going to have
Hopefully that's the idea.
a little more exposure. So, yeah, little.
Let's bring it back. Want to bring it back?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I agree.
And then also Carl will be here too, and I think.
Hey, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Jason?
Yep.
I did receive one email personally through my road commission email from a gal out in Fife Lake Township, and her concern with not concerned that Tom's doing it, but her concern was that if we deviate from what we have been doing here now with the Zoom and that, she doesn't get those channels out there, and she would be blocked from viewing how she is now. She would not have that ability. And I responded back to her and told her that, you know, we had a board meeting tonight and I would talk about it. I think this is just, you know, Tom's price is very reasonable. I mean, Tom, it's very reasonable. The money I don't have too much concern about. But I think the transparency through more outlets, especially with what's going on and what's going to happen in the area, I think is, I think the more people that can see what we're doing, I think the better off we are. That's my point.
I pretty much concur. So.
And the aspect of that is the DVD to the public access TV will be on the television as well as on their website. as well as you have, will have a
And we have,
DVD
right.
in addition to your Zoom. I don't know what your cameras are. They don't move around. They don't give you the intimate feeling that I think I can provide.
There is that too.
So I'll come to the next meeting and perhaps you'll have a,
Somebody can take all of it and put it together and do like a cinematic experience, right?
they could.
All right. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So you'll
Tom.
discuss it out.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm gonna, we'll talk with management and then also it will be on next month's agenda.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome, Carl.
Okay, that brings us to Dan, Mission Hills.
Hi, Dan Olson, Mission Hills HOA. I forgot to give you my address last time, 14795 Mallard Drive. I sent each of the commissioners and staff the proposed resolution to initiate a drain petition. Just a little bit of background on why I wanted to present that at tonight's meeting. Our special meeting in early March, Andy Spence from the Drain Commission is here. And as you may recall, he was appearing basically gratis to try to assist in the endeavors there on Bluff Road. And he's willing to volunteer up to 2 meetings to try to assist us to move forward. But really, as we've been looking at it, if we're going to go to the route of engaging the drain commissioner, someone needs to start the petition to engage him. And talking to Mr. Smith, it would be logical that it would be best coming from the road commission for a couple reasons. One of which, you guys are more equipped to handle that kind of activity. One of the things is that you have access to the revolving fund that's currently unused right now with the county to help offset the cost of the costs associated with the drain petition and the workup for that. And another point that is important to note is anything that the road commission would do to support that petition, such as there's going to be a need for surveying and things like that. Road commission has its own surveyor, and the use of that surveyor to support the drain commission, that would offset that contribution to that process would offset the road commission's cost sharing obligations on the back end. So you'd actually be kind of saving money to the extent that you provide services that support the work of the drain commissioner in that regard on the back end when it came to cost sharing. So I wanted to put that before you folks for consideration. I have a clean copy without Mr. Indris's name as far as motion is, since he's not here, and I wasn't aware that he was going to be here when I provided that to you folks.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of go around the block here first.
We set up that work group.
We set up the work.
And is the work group the one asking us to do this?
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I was wondering about too.
That's the township is the lead on that.
The work group has not been able to meet yet. And I had initially thought that when the township supervisor was here, he was going to he thought the township might be the initiator of the petition. I don't have a particular problem with us doing it, but the work group hasn't met yet. And I think we should at least try to get through that first meeting and have some sort of a consensus or as clear as we could be for it. I don't have a problem with the road commission doing it at all. But
You want the township to be the one to say, will you do this for us? Really?
Yeah. I would like for us to get through the first township meeting before we do this, Dan. And I realize that sometimes the months just seem to be going by without a tremendous amount of action. They suggested we meet in the mornings, and I replied that I prefer evenings because I still have a job, but I would be willing to do mornings, but I never got any sort of confirmation from the township. Now, I understand that there just were a lot of people that weren't available then, so it sort of fell apart. So if we could get through a meeting, and then if we need to initiate the petition, if we need to be the petitioners, I do not have any problem with us being the petitioner in that case.
Carl?
I concur with Alan. I think that's the proper avenue of attack here. Meet with the township first, make sure that, that this is very palatable to them to take this step, and then get that ball rolling. But I think they need to be on board 100% also with this, because it does affect their finances also.
And I want to add, that was one of the things that I felt that this committee was going to do, was to kind of put this together and get things in a row, so to speak. The other thing I think we need to really consider too is that the drain district, depending on the size of the drain district, we have to consider the people who are in the drain district. And I think that's where the having a first meeting, you can sit down, you can talk about that. I mean, frankly, there might be somebody even up on Mallard Drive who says, I don't want a drain district. I mean,
Well, I'm sure there's divergent views.
there are divergent views. So I mean, I think that discussion needs to happen a little bit, at least consideration of those other views as well. But I appreciate the thoughts, and you are correct on the cost savings, and as we've heard, no problem with it coming from the road commission when the time is right.
Very good. And to be clear, this wasn't an issue. I wasn't pretending this was an issue from the working group.
No.
But in talking to Andy, he said, I'm only good for 2 meetings, and so that's why I wanted to at least put it forward. So thank you for your consideration.
And Andy's been real helpful, and we don't want to abuse him in any way.
Right.
We don't want to abuse his generosity in any way.
And it really affects the township. So we really need the township to participate in this. I mean,
I was at the township talking to them too. So apparently Christina's computer is it took a dive, and so she wasn't responding to emails. So I alerted her of the fact that everyone's responded to the scheduling. And so I think that's why we haven't heard back from them. But okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. That brings us to the Rodnells.
I've prepared something that I would like to read, because full disclosure, I get up here and I get nervous. So I spent a lot of time drafting this, and I didn't do it with a light heart. And I feel that transparency is very important, and that's why I took the time to write this. The staff has made it abundantly clear on numerous occasions that they are unhappy about the potential change that we've been discussing. And I believe that they are deliberately slowing this process. I say this because we've been engaging with the board and the staff for 10 weeks now. And during our my most recent call with Bain, he had indicated that there may not be a resolve for our driveway permit by the end of by the month of May. And this is following a board member statement on the March 2nd meeting that they would approve the standards no later than April. I've never seen staff work so hard to defy a board's motion or manipulate a timeline out of spite. All of this is wildly inappropriate and almost bizarre in nature. They have not been transparent with the board about their performance during this process, nor have they been transparent with us as tax-paying community members. I have evidence to support both of my statements. These are not outrageous accusations on my part. This includes last-minute Zoom calls, delays due to various vacations, failure to return voicemails and emails, refusing to answer simple questions, and a disgruntled, condescending behavior regarding this topic as a whole. You may think that I'm making things personal. Let me assure you I am. While I'm a professional and I have a successful career, I'm also a mother and I'm a wife. The staff's behavior is impacting our future and our home, and I'm not sure things could get more personal than that. It's my perception that the staff intends to use the public hearing not for community transparency, but to deter change and again, slow the process. In short, I think they are searching for opposition to match their own. Just this morning, I had to ask 3 separate times about the context of the potential public notice, specifically whether it would be generated from a templated document or whether it would consist of a freely written narrative by one of the staff members. There's not a doubt in my mind that this staff member was deliberately trying to avoid my question, which is why I pressed her on it. I think we can all agree that this kind of, habitual behavior does not translate to community transparency. Wayne has been one of the only employees who to attempt to keep the lines of communication open with me, but that does not negate the fact that he told my husband his decision on the cul-de-sac was final. There were no other means for appeal. This is what prompted our letter to you in the first place back in January. Very little has been done by staff to generate change. Brad, Wayne, and Kylie They're all part of this culture. Their behavior and opposition are disrespectful to the board and to my family. Chair Gilman, you stated, excuse me, Chairman Gilman, at the last meeting that you were trying to help us. And while I do truly believe that from the board, I do not feel the same about the road commission staff. I kindly ask the board to take action tonight, and if any portion of this is left to the staff to complete, that they set their own feelings aside and willingly work within the timeline set forth by the board. I want to thank you all for your time and consideration regarding this matter. We understand that strong leadership is not for the faint of heart, and we hope that you'll appreciate our feedback as it comes from a place of kindness, clarity, and decency.
Anything you want to say?
At the last meeting, I thought we said tonight was, the public hearing was going to be scheduled for tonight.
I don't recall that, but I mean, it's a matter of record, if it is.
I do have the, in our
I
packet.
know that we had to schedule it.
Right. I believe,
Our target date was the end of it.
Yes.
Yeah, May 1st, yeah, was our target date.
And since then, staff has met with our attorney. And between staff and the attorney, we have presented for you tonight the draft standards, which you have to go ahead and give us the blessing that, yes, you're acceptable to them, and then we can schedule a public hearing. So you have to tell us that, yes,
That's what it is.
it is
We have-
acceptable,
We have,
and then we can schedule a public hearing. Our intention, according to item I with on the agenda, is staff requests the board review the developmental standards, and that a public hearing will be held at the April 28th meeting.
Right, if I understand it. And then mechanically for them, once we.
As soon as you approve the standards, the following day, we can start the approval process for a driveway permit. And yeah, and assuming they have everything lined up and everything, we should be within the day or by that following Monday, we should have a driveway approach permit in place. But we have to have the draft standards approved at a public meeting, and before we can schedule it, you had to see what the results of the attorney's impact and her draft of the standards was.
so that's item I that we're going to be coming up to. All right, Carl, did you have anything on this?
Nope, I think what Brad said was what happened, that, you know, they went back to attorney, we had to get that stuff hammered out, and then I guess as far as the public hearing goes, I'm not quite sure that Mrs. Revnell is quite versed on how that happens. It usually goes very quickly, and it's not drafted to sway anybody's opinion one way or another. If anybody has a comment, they can comment, and then we as the board accept or deny at that point. So it's just a chance for public to speak one way or another. And if a compelling reason comes from the public to say that we shouldn't do it, and we feel that that's what it is, that's what it is. But I've been on the board almost 12 years now, and I'm not going to say it couldn't be a first, but I've never had one that has not been approved by this board.
All right, I'll last word on this. Our staff has danced and they've listened to us, and we've gone against their suggestions. They are the experts generally. We have standards that have been established for a long time. And I bristle a little bit. I bristle a little bit at what you see as an attack in some way on you, and I'm afraid I don't see it that way.
I don't think we've had the conversations with the staff that I have.
My understanding of this is that what we are doing is we are accommodating your desire to have something done that goes against existing standards. So what we've done is we've enlisted the aid of our attorney, we've enlisted the aid of our staff to develop new standards. And we've gone through the process, and it is a process, and sometimes you have to be patient. Okay, and your patience, because you want to build at a certain date. I'm sorry, sometimes it doesn't work that way. So I mean, no
I
disrespect,
appreciate. I don't need you to mansplain things to me, Chair Gilman. I don't appreciate that. I understand what's happening here. I've had many conversations. Your behavior is inappropriate
the
as well.
public hearing, as Carl has put it, is pretty much, it's just a part of the process. It's a rubber stamp, okay? You know, I will defend our staff when they deserve defending, and right now I believe that they do, because I don't think it was appropriate to, especially when they're trying to help you.
They're not trying to help me. I've had multiple conversations with them.
And I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing it on the other side too.
Okay, well,
Okay,
I
mean,
would
so
hope that you would
perhaps
consider my
when I say something, we're trying to help you, you know, and we're going to make it happen. Sometimes have a little faith, but the process is the process. And if it doesn't happen in your timeline, I'm sorry about that. That's just sometimes the way it goes. Okay?
Understood.
All right. That brings us to our consent calendar. Kylie?
The consent calendar is used to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together without discussion. Request by any person present to remove any item from the consent calendar for full discussion as agenda item are automatically respected. The action noted in parentheses for all items remaining on the consent calendar are approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. The manager recommends the following items be adopted. 1, minutes. 2, payroll. 3, accounts payable. 4, financial reports. And 5, reports and communications.
Would anybody in the public like to have anything removed from the consent calendar? Would anybody on our board like to have anything removed? See that
Motion to accept this on calendar.
Okay, Joe, support, and Alan. All right, Kylie?
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown,
You can't.
Andrus, abstain.
I can't vote.
Lehman,
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes. Okay, yeah, consent calendar, there are no items removed from the consent calendar. That brings us to some housekeeping, state maintenance contract amendments.
Yeah, so when the state sent out the amendment, they forgot to put the new language in. The only change is winter staffing levels instead of a formula to calculate the winter staffing. It's gonna be an agreed upon number of winter maintenance staff.
I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the contract amendment.
Second. Kylie?
Brown, Andrus, absent, excused. Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Phil. Another one, let's see, Act 51 resolution.
This is the annual certification resolution. It is effectively a rubber stamp type thing. We haven't changed any roads. We haven't added any roads. This is just to say that you agree that what we certified last year is the same thing that we're certifying this year.
I'll make the motion to. Joe, support, Alan, Kylie?
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown, no voting, Andrus, absent and excused, and Gilman.
Yes. Okay. That brings us to item F, the Keystone Cass Road Roundabout Construction Engineering Services.
That should also, it should be Keystone and Cass, and it should also be Keystone River. It's for both.
All right, and that brings us to a bit of discussion.
Yes, so this amount is for what was anticipated to be a 19-week construction schedule. And with us being able to potentially do it in 15 weeks, it would be less than 450,000. So that would allow us to reduce this, but it is based upon us needing to have staff to do this. Joe Sonecki, the Assistant County Highway Engineer, has taken a job at Wade Trim. And we have been trying to find replacement engineers.
We did some research around with other engineering firms. Gaz and Zubek has been looking for a structural engineer for 18 months, and has not been able to fill it. Gordy Frazier has been looking for positions for over a year, and they have not been able to fill them. And it's just the nature of the current job market that people are moving, and there are people that are out there, engineering firms that are offering exceptionally high wages that we just are not in a position to be offering for entry-level engineers. So we are short a couple of engineers. We're doing what we can. We have some postings out for a technician right now, as well as we're getting to the point where we're going to be posting again for an engineer. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but we have several positions for technicians, and that we are attempting to fill these positions, but at this point, we have not had success.
We go around the block here. I know that Alan wants to speak to this. Joe? No?
Last year, when we approved the roundabout last March, I think it was, at 4 Mile, somebody had just resigned, and we had the contract come for the 15% of the deal, $300,000 from OHM. And I spoke strongly against it because I thought that it's not a good use of the taxpayers' money. And I think that, $450,000 is a lot of money, and considering an engineer probably the equivalent of their salaries, 100 grand or so, that would get us 4 people year round to work in this office. And maybe if that's not enough for 4 people, maybe we could only get 3, but at least we'd have 3 full-time engineers. In addition to Wayne, who cannot carry this county by himself on his own to help him. And if the salary has to be what it needs to be to recruit, I guess we need to include that to get engineers. I would not vote for this. I will not vote for $500,000 to support this roundabout construction.
Carl?
Well, this project at this point is ready to go. It is, to Alan's point, it is a substantial amount of money. And just another point, just, to the point of splitting it up in $100 and some thousand for 3 people or whatever, that cost with overhead and that would be substantially more than that if that's what you're paying that gentlemen or women, all 3 of them. I just don't, short of if we don't approve a engineering company, then those projects are not going to move forward. And I don't like the dollar amount either. I didn't like the dollar amount before. But if you look at the services that are entailed in this, there's more than just one guy. This is the construction component to it than just one person doing this job. There's multiple ones with all of the testing and everything else that has to happen. To me, it does sound high, but in this day and age, everything is high. So, would I like to see it closer to 275, 300? Absolutely. But I just don't know that that's feasible at this point in time.
If we don't approve it, we lose the whole season, probably. And it is high. The chances of us hiring even one engineer are going to be slim because of the market. And while that's higher than I like to, I'm ready to vote yes on it. So, I'm ready to make a motion to move on, but got a second out of that, so I'm not sure where we stand.
Hey, Jason, can I pitch in one more time here?
Please.
you know, and I don't, you know, and I'm gonna try and put somebody on the spot here, and I don't know that I can, and I don't know if they can give me an answer. If we were doing this in-house with an engineer and staff testing and overhead figured in, what would that dollar amount be to us versus this number here? Where would we be at? And I don't think anybody's gonna be able to tell me that number tonight. I just don't think that's gonna happen.
How many hours are
Yeah.
into the project?
They are anticipating to have several people on site. It's not just one inspector. We have several inspectors that will be on site. We do not do in-house testing. So no matter what, whether it be OHM that does the testing or it be
Right.
somebody else, we have to hire that out because we just are not
Right.
set up to do testing in-house. So, you know, there are expenses that would be still associated with a contract for that testing portion of it.
Yep.
In addition to that, you're gonna have to have an engineer that is readily available for any changes that have to occur. So, you know, you're
Correct.
talking about dedicating an engineer, and as I said, you know, we are trying as much as we can within the scope of what we have budgetary availability to find engineers, but we are just not
Hey,
finding them.
Hey, Brad, I wasn't looking at hiring a person for that. I was looking at if we had people on staff right now, if we actually had warm bodies in the building, what would our cost be associated with this project?
And we've built to the.
Because I see the bid here is $150,000, but what if we had the abilities to do this? And I understand testing would have to be sent out. I know that goes to labs and that, but that still would be a component of that fee. Is this a exceptionally high number? Is it you know, or is it spot on, or would we be substantially lower? You know, because we still have overhead for all of the stuff that we do, whether it be vehicles or people or whatever else that would have to be figured in. I mean, because that is a cost of doing business for us.
Yes.
It's actually 2 1/4 a project, which is actually cheaper than 4 mile.
Right. And we believe it will, I mean, we believe it will be able to come in less than that if we are doing both of them at the same time.
So right now it's standing at 225,000 per project, 2 projects. And we were at 3.
Correct.
They estimated 300,000.
Yeah.
They were at 236 total, but that one also had a lot of utilities.
Right. So it's the same ballpark as 4 mile.
It seemed reasonable.
And when you start looking at an engineer on staff now, you know, you have a single engineer whose job is not to be out really inspecting projects. That's not really his job. He's supposed to be managing all of engineering. So, you know, I mean, even if you had Joe on this, you know, we still would not have enough to cover it simply because Joe was also dealing with all of the rest of the crush and chase and all of the rest of the engineering work that goes with our federal aid projects. So without finding additional engineers, it's very hard for us to say, what is it going to cost us to employ an engineer at this point?
All right.
I'll make a motion, whether it goes anywhere. I'm gonna make a motion to accept the engineering services bid for the 2 projects on Keystone. Keystone Pipe.
And I believe it dies for lack of a second. Which is better than it going forward for a vote and failing, by the way.
Correct.
Because next month we can certainly talk about it again, I suppose. However, I've got a little different take on this. Would you say Wayne is overworked right now?
With to him as himself,
Yeah.
as a single engineer, yes.
Okay. First of all, I think the plans were over-engineered. I think he spent too much time on them, too much into some of the what I consider is unnecessary. And I've looked at the standards, the federal standards, and I've done the research that I can.
I don't think it's a design that is friendly to drivers, particularly people who A, are unfamiliar with roundabouts, or B, people who drive long trucks. I think it's overly expensive as a result. I mean, I would just as soon, Carl mentioned that to let this go pretty much knocks it out of this year's schedule. And frankly, I have no problem with that. And, you know, because I really think that the design needs to be looked at again, and it needs to be simplified. And I think there's a way to do it. And I think there's a way to do it so that it costs much, much less, even if construction costs go up. And in the meantime, I think we need to reconsider our wage scale for our engineering services, and potentially get back in the game here, because if we're going to be paying the big dollars for those high dollar engineers, I mean, essentially what we're doing is we're paying the competition, so to speak. OHM, okay, to hire the big dollar engineers, or to pay the big dollars to the engineers and attract that talent. We need to attract the talent here. If Wayne needs a bump to make it right, or, you know, but he needs help. And I think we need to talk about that.
Can we do a long-term contractual with an engineering firm? Get our problems out of the way? Like a year or two or something.
Problem we have right now is the fact that we've talked to other engineering firms. Gosling is one of them that is also on our pre-qualified list, and they don't have anybody available either. And so we have a severely limited availability for even contracting out at this point. Simply put, the cost of living in Grand Traverse County for an engineer that is in the ballpark that we're looking at is just not really feasible. And we are having this issue with all of our crew. I mean, we have people that cannot afford to come here to work because it costs too much to live here.
Well,
And that's,
right now, I think we need to take a look at our design and see if what we have to do is pay enough to make it worthwhile. And if we have to take it out of that design, we have to take it out of that design. I just think it can be done. Like, we just need to try a little harder maybe and look at it and try to keep it simple. Or simply, as far as, you know, Wayne mentioned to me one day, he said, well, we could put up 4 stop signs. Okay. That's a cheap way to get out of it. You know, the light works now. Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, the one that makes the most sense to me, of course, is the River Road. You know, the River Road at Biter.
What happens? Can I ask a question? If we bring this back next month and we have a full board, so we can actually full discuss it, how does that change everything?
well, it assumes that we have a contractor that's willing to hold their prices for that long.
Or we have to go through the whole rebid process?
And, you know, how does it fall into the schedule of when does this construction project start? So the other question is, you know, we could always schedule a special meeting when Carl is back and when Kevin is back.
I think we can answer,
well,
but I think we can answer that first question right away. If I could it's your company, you had the low bid that was read. Would you be willing to hold your price if we waited a month?
Yes. And secondly, now that the scope has changed, we could rebid it with the dual project. I mean, that's basically what the secondary.
Well, we can go through a whole new process, but if we're gonna go through a whole new process, frankly, I'm telling you, I think we need to redesign it. And we need to simplify it, and we can take those savings and we can put them towards engineers, because frankly, I think it's an overpriced project. It's over-designed, and I'd rather not do it if we're gonna go forward and spend this kind of money on.
Or you're saying both of them you feel are?
Yeah, I would rather simplify both designs. I think it can be done.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that we hold off until the whole board is back.
I
and Attack this. as
I
a
have no
whole
problem
board.
discussing with the whole board.
I don't know how we officially do that. so.
No, we just don't.
We just don't act on it.
We don't act on
Next month.
it. We're not gonna be able to act on it on the award for today.
Especially would you just want to wait till next.
Carl, when are you gonna be back?
After the first week of March or April.
Let's see if we can set up a special meeting. Because I think we should, I mean, I'm willing to take a look at it. Is that all right? Okay. So, Kylie, if you could just work with us and figure something out, find out when Kevin's gonna be back too.
Yep.
So,
You bet.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, Carl. Go ahead, Carl.
Are we we're gonna get to the thing, so we're not gonna award contract. I understand that. Are we gonna have a little bit of discussion when we get to that point?
About the awarding the contract?
Yeah,
We can do that.
okay. I'd like to chime in at that point when that item comes up, okay?
So you do, like, so you want to discuss
We still
the
want to.
construction,
We
the
will
next
still,
one.
sure.
Okay.
No, okay, well, that'll just take us right to item G then. Let's just jump right to that. Go ahead, Carl. Why don't you start it off?
Well, Bill Mauser and I were very adamant we had a contract issue, just like M&M has here, on one. And Bill and I both being in the construction field, and Alan also, when you do if you're deviating from the contract, you got to be fair to everybody to give them a chance to deviate. I'm gonna say that right up front. And it sounds to me like maybe we didn't do that, maybe we did do that. I don't know. But low bid's low bid. And we went round and round about that before. And I've been on construction sites with Elmer's. I've been on construction sites some years back with M&M, several different companies. And I worked for companies, and it was very competitive in the 90s. And you sharpened your pencil up, and when you were low bid, you were low bid. You're a qualified bidder. And to deviate from that is you're contaminating the integrity of that process. And Bill and I were both adamant that was not how we wanted to operate, and that's not how we should operate.
All right.
Can I say one thing on that? We did send out an addendum, which allowed for changes in the standard, into the spec. And in the actual bid itself, that it said that any changes to the proposed schedule or traffic control plan would be evaluated and either approved or declined by the road commission. So that was part of the answer to addendum 2, was the discount that Elmer's put in to their secondary proposal. So it was put out by addendum, giving everybody the opportunity to place a different project out or a different scope of project out for scheduling at the time that we sent this out, before the bids were actually received. Both the bidders did acknowledge receipt of said addendum. So
Carl kind of put what I was going to do, but if I can think out loud. In my MDOT project days, we used to reward companies that we get done on time or early. Is that something we do here, or something we could do here as a whole?
I think we could. I mean, that's really, because there are times where you have an advantage of opening a roadway, for example, instead of pissing off people for another 2 months, if you can get them to move faster. It's all.
That's usually put right into, that was at the time that Alan's speaking about, was put right in the contracts, that there was incentives for every day ahead of schedule. And that was common back in the day. I don't know if it still is. I haven't really seen an MDOT contract lately, but that was, and ride control. They put in ride control. The road was smoother and they have machines that measure that. There was incentive for the pavers. So that was very common in the day.
I believe we need to be more clear in our bid process. And I do not like awarding a contract to anybody but the low bidder when it's red. If you want to negotiate if the contractor wishes to suggest something or negotiate, or the engineer wants to suggest something after we've awarded the bid and the engineering staff feels like that's in the road commission's and the public's best interest, then they can move forward with that. But I don't think we should be negotiating. I appreciate I was a contractor, and I appreciate your statement in the letter you wrote to us that the bid situation should be really sacred with a group like ours. And I don't like other factors in other than the dollar, the lowest dollar to the taxpayer. And then if there's something else that is a good idea, then the staff should consider that then. But I don't think there should be anything like that. I think if we opened ourselves up to this difference of opinion on how to award the bid, and we reserve the right to award it to anybody we want. I get it. I think M&M is a well-qualified company, and I appreciate they're coming over here to bid. I think Elmer's is an excellent local company, and when I competed against them, they were a very tough competitor. But I believe to keep the pencil sharpest, we need to award that to the low bidder. Carl spoke about it. I don't know why we'd ever change it. Don't put in other things that you can't measure by the dollar. Only consider those afterwards if there's some stuff. And if there's something that should have been really important, then that probably should have been a part of the design or the specifications in the bid. In road work, there's certain things, the traffic management in our county is really important. Because there's not a lot of alternate choices. This isn't a nice square grid in another county where it's easy to get around. So I think the traffic management is really important. And we need to consider all that stuff beforehand. Should be part of the design process and the specification process. And I would like us to keep our bids. When you get the low number from a qualified contractor, you take it.
All right, no other comments. I pretty much said my piece on this, and I expect that we'll have a robust discussion next at our special meeting. And it will be a special meeting, so if we need to do something, we can make it happen. So that pretty much wipes out F and G for the night.
Is that all you wanted to talk about, G?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. I just want to make sure.
That moves us to H, resolution of support for fiscal year 2025 local bridge program application, just to keep us in there.
Yes, so this is for the Feitner crossing, which is currently 2 culverts. And what we're asking for is to be able to submit our application for the local bridge project with a 20% match. That is higher than the minimum, but pretty much in order to get a surety of funds, you have to be able to contribute more than their minimum. So we would like the approval of the board to then come forth with the application and allow us to bid or to put in the application for approval with a 20% match.
Just out of curiosity, are we considering, are we looking at this as a potential timber bridge like we did?
No,
No.
this is a true bridge.
Okay.
It'll be about 120, 130 feet long.
Okay.
It'll cross both current tubes that are there.
Okay.
Because they will not let you put in side-by-side tubes.
Okay.
Future growth. Why is this bridge gonna be?
About the same as it is now, 4 lane plus a little bit. So we can always go back and look at that if that's what you want. We can do that here in-house and say if you want to add a little bit additional. But 4 lanes would be enough right now, and we don't have plans on widening that at this point.
But if it was, it would be enough to support something that we could put bike lanes or something there also.
Traffic, because that is, yeah, twice a day that road is.
Yes, and part of that issue is because of the Chum's Corner, which is a fault of the interface with them.
That's right, that's out of our control.
Yeah.
Right, and we are looking to try and get some changes made to that interchange so that it would allow us to have more traffic flowing straight through.
Okay, I'm making a motion to support the bridge application.
All right, we have a support and a second. Kylie?
Underwood?
Yes.
Brown is virtual, not voting. Andrus is absent and excused. Lena
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes. All right. Thank you on that, Brad.
All right, now we have the development standards. You all should have received them. They're marked draft. Does anybody have any questions about those draft standards?
This would be our standard that we'd put forth at the public hearing next month, as you were
Yes.
suggesting.
Yep, and so we have a resolution here that would be, or a process that would go into effect here. If you approve these and you don't have any changes to make, it's pretty easy. Even if you want changes made, Kylie can jot those down and then we will enter it as the final version of it. We sat down with the attorney for about an hour to discuss all the different aspects that come into it to make sure that we're still covered if a development comes into effect and there's the ability to revoke the driveway approach if any lot were to eventually become a development. So they would not be able to use a driveway as an entrance into a development, but they could for a single residence house.
I'll make the motion to approve the standard, standards, right, however.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. This will essentially allow us to go that next step into the public hearing and make this happen.
Okay.
All right. Kylie?
Brown, which is virtual. Andrus, which is absent and excused. Lena
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Gilman.
Yes.
Okay, now at this time, we would like you to approve a public meeting or public hearing on this, which will be held immediately prior to the actual board meeting. We will start the meeting with the public hearing and then move into the rest of the, so it'll be at 7 o'clock on April 28th. Joe? We'll start at the normal time and that will be the public hearing time.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, Kylie?
Andrus, absent and excused. Lena
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown is virtual and not voting, and Gilman.
Yes.
Okay, so we will have a hearing at the beginning of the next meeting, or at the beginning of the next regular meeting.
Yes.
All right, that brings us to item J.
May I ask a question?
Okay.
When I spoke with Mike, he said that everybody from Fisher's Run and Bannister would be receiving a letter outlining this. Is that typical, given that it's a countywide standard change?
It will go into the paper to notify for public meeting. And then we will also notify people that are currently involved in anything for it. So they will receive something also, but it is a standard. It's just as we're holding a public meeting to discuss standards that are going to be approved at the next board or potentially approved at the next.
And they
board.
would be notified simply because it immediately affects them.
Thank you.
Material and service bids.
Jay?
Good evening. On March 16th, we held an opening for a number of bids and services for field operations, which is kind of an annual custom. Staff is recommending, the following be approved as follows. Plain riprap, staff recommends that it be jointly awarded to all bidding parties, with material being procured based on the best cost and geographic proximity to the area of use. Heavy riprap, Staff recommends that the bid be awarded to Elmer's Crane and Dozer, as the other bid which was received did not meet spec in regards to size. Similarly, 22A and 23A, staff recommends that those are jointly awarded to all bidding parties, and again, being procured on best cost and geographic proximity to the area of use. Crushed concrete, staff recommends that the bid be awarded to the sole participant, Elmer's Crane and Dozer. On the topic of awarding to not lowest price, I've come to dust control summer brine. I was very pleased that we had a substantial increase year over year with our bid participants. If we recall last year, the perennial vendor Beckman submitted a no bid, which kind of threw us for a loop. This year we received a number of bids. The lowest price bid was also denoted in the bidding comments that they would not be able to hit our timeline. So that's why we're recommending, the staff recommends that the bid be awarded to LCC, or liquid calcium chloride sales, due to the other participating vendors either having unfavorable timing or requested variances to the bid spec, which we would not be accommodating. Guardrail, we had a sole participant with Action Traffic and Maintenance, so staff recommends that the bid be awarded as followed to Action Traffic. Sand, we did receive 2 bids this season. However, our in-house cost is below that, so we are not recommending any award of that bid.
Yes.
On the 18th, we opened sealed bids for tree services and stump services. For stump grinding services, staff recommends that the bid be awarded to Aggressive Tree Service LLC. One other bid was received with unfavorable pricing. And then for tree trimming, staff recommends that the bid be jointly awarded to all parties, again, with services being sought based on best cost upon the duration of scope of work.
Make a motion, we approve the staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Do you have a question?
Yes, Alan and Joe, and go ahead, Joe.
This is the higher cost brine stuff, correct? The
Correct.
that we liked from last year that all the townships are over the sticker shock.
I can answer the first, I can't answer the second. So yeah, this season we revamped the bid spec. And one of the things that was especially important to me was that we look at that salt content. Because historically the bid spec was rather open to interpretation. So this year, we put our engineering hats on. We actually detailed the equivalencies out. So the product that performed extremely well was a 38% calcium chloride. If someone did want to propose a mineral well brine, we said your application rate has to increase, so you're giving us the equivalent performance of that product. So we're able to kind of compare more apples to apples. But yes, the LCC application would be the exact liquid out 38% calcium chloride product that we enjoyed last year.
My second question is on guardrails. As we try to move towards in-house guardrail service, we don't get any bumped up by any of the bidding of with the one with the Action Traffic, right? We start doing some of the stuff our own. We're not guaranteeing them all the work, I guess is a good way to say it.
Correct. There is no guarantee of volumes or services, just pricing.
We are looking at getting our people trained
You want
to do the
substantial.
guardrail in-house because of the fact that the delays we've experienced with the past 2 contracts.
Yeah, so I make sure we don't get ourselves tied up.
Now, the tree trimming, I know that we've done our own tree trimming in the past too. What are we talking? Are we talking outside the scope of what our guys are doing already, or?
Yeah, so kind of in addition to the scope, when we encounter power lines, some things that we may not be more apt to perform ourselves, if there's extensive rigging, those sort of things that we might not be within, our professional scope to conduct. Staffing is also a consideration, as with engineering and everybody else,
Yeah.
In industry, we want to have that flexibility to contract out as needed.
Carl, do you have anything?
No, everything that I've heard is good so far.
Thank you. Seeing no other conversations, we have a motion and support. Kelly?
Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown is virtual and not voting, Andrus absent and excused, and Gilman.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Dan, you want to join me up here just in case we have questions?
Get the wrench up here.
Well, Dan's been doing a lot of new work for him, you know, dealing with facilities and been getting some stuff done here. We actually have real climate control in this room. It's not freezing or boiling, which is good. But he's got a bunch of stuff here and I'll let him go through them and discuss a little bit on that hoist.
Okay, so we're recommending to replace the second truck hoist, using the same company that actually installed them 25 years ago. And they installed one for us last year. It's working out great. We're really, really happy with it. So we're looking to replace that hoist. Starting to have some failure, starting to come apart a little bit. So for safety reasons, we're recommending replacement of that hoist.
Motion to replace the hoist.
Support?
All right, I just have one question. Did we come in about where we expected to come in at when we put the bid up? Because having one bidder, you know.
Right, definitely. They're definitely, I would say, the experts in the field in Michigan, Hexag, Grand Rapids, and they did actually come in just a little under what they're coming at.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was nice to see.
budgeted 100.
Okay, we budgeted 100 for it. So, yeah. All right. Carl, you have anything?
No, it's great. It's less of what we budgeted. That's a good thing in this day and age.
Kylie?
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown, virtual, Andrus absent and excused, Lehman,
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Get your tools.
All right.
Next one is also a bid from Dan, but we are looking to replace personnel doors, not garage doors. And we are looking to replace them with fiberglass instead of steel. Because we have salt,
All things considered.
they tend to rot out pretty quick. So these doors are definitely far better for a salty environment, as well as the fact that they are a more sound door. It's overall less maintenance, less worry with them. So we are recommending these as fiberglass, and we did receive the 2 bids. One was from a company down in Wyoming, Michigan, and then the second was from Allen Supply right here in town, just across the street. Allen has done most of our work with our locks and our doors in the past, and we've been very satisfied with them based on the fact that this is something that if there is an issue, we want them to be able to make it back here fairly quickly. We feel that the slight difference in cost of $241 is worth it to have somebody local as opposed to somebody that's 3.5 hours away. And from talking to the people that were bidding this, it's they're don't really have a full staff right yet. So we know Allen Supply can deal with what we have here and get these doors installed.
Motion to approve the purchase of the doors.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Do you have anything to add to this, Carl?
No, other than I have used Allen Supply in the past, and I've had exceptional service from them. That's about it.
All right, I'm a little sensitive to the whole low bid thing right now, you know, understandably. But I also kind of come from the whole, if it's within 5% or so, I mean, that makes it a lot easier to go guilt-free, you know, notwithstanding, you know. Okay, if there's no other discussion, Kylie?
Brown is attending virtually, Andrus absent and excused, Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to the next.
Winter
part.
trucks.
Yeah, winter trucks.
So this is a new truck from Western Star that's been kind of in the works for several years. And it is more designed for what we do here.
It's gonna be a municipality built truck.
And so we're looking at these and the prices are about where we, I think, expected them to be, substantially less than the Peterbilts. And we've had really phenomenal success with the Western Stars. The service is right down the road as opposed to having to drive down to Grand Rapids for certain things. So we recommend the replacement or these 3 new trucks at $144,000 each.
When would these arrive? Next year? A year out or something?
Yeah,
By the time-
first quarter of 23, that's the closest still.
And then they go from here, then they will approve the upfitting them to be actual plow trucks up wherever we end up with bid.
I know, we usually go to the same place, sure.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid for 3 Western Star and actual trucks for plus or minus $434,000.
We have a motion support. Do you have anything to add, Carl?
I do, as a matter of fact.
Thank
When these things arrive, is this gonna be the price we pay this time, or we're gonna pay a fee on top of?
Oh, yeah, we did this.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
We did
at
it the
this
last-
point, at this point, they are saying this is the cost.
Well,
Shy of some,
I think a little more assurance here. We bit the bullet last time. And,
Right.
you know, if we put money down or something, we'll find some money or something. But that, when you're buying something like that and you got to order it, that's, you know, this should be the price. It shouldn't change when delivery's made.
I think, didn't they commit to it last time when they were?
yeah,
They
it
came
was
back-
basically, it was
Came
the
back for
cost,
more.
it was the cost to them from their suppliers. And with
That's
prices
not my fault.
stabilized.
That's not my fault.
I understood. And we will be in discussion with Dan. Sorry. We'll be in touch with them. We will be talking through this and that most definitely, but yes, we feel very comfortable at this point based on what they're telling us that this would be the cost.
If we canceled that order, we would be right back where we're at now, at 140.
Yeah, but you know what? If that's the deal here, then it's not low bid because it's a bid that's going to increase. And so we're not looking at what it actually is. And there's nothing to say that they couldn't bump it over this 153,000. And so we're stuck because we got to wait and we can't wait. So I think a little more assurance that the price is the price. I mean, we bit the bullet the last time and I was not very happy about that. I didn't feel that that's the proper way to do it. If I put a bid out there, and Alan will tell you the same thing, you put a bid out there, Alan, do you stand behind it unless you deviate from the contract?
Definitely. Maybe we can ask for a bid bond.
You know, that's how it works in the real world as far as I can see, but apparently it didn't the last time.
It's not like we will get it. It doesn't matter.
I think what perhaps we could concur to have management get a commitment from them in writing, because if not,
Right. Yeah, we will.
we have to take a hard look at this again, because, you know, they give us a bid, we accept the bid, and then a year from now, you know, we're stuck with whatever their problems are. Yeah, I agree with Carl. Thank you, Carl. I'm glad somebody around here remembers things.
Once in a while.
One here that would have been here when that happened.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah, you were, that's right.
We gotta get them ordered. Yes. The parent company, these guys, has already talked about having a significant increase.
All right. All right,
Are we voting?
I'm for buying. I'm for buying the trucks. I mean, I'm not against that.
I understand that.
Andrus, absent and excused. Lehman,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown is virtual, not voting, and Gilman.
Yes. All right, next item, N, mowing services and Acme Park bids. Basically the MDOT pass
Yeah.
through.
The Acme Park is a pass through straight from The contractor bills us, we bill the state reimburses us plus our overhead. And that's how it works, because we have the maintenance contract with the state. The mowing of the facility here is at our expense. We have at times been able to do some mowing here, but for the most part, we just don't have the time or the equipment to deal with that. So we had bids received on both of these, and there's two different recommendations here. One is for the Acme Park, and the other is for the mowing services. And we're recommending that the T&M Services, who did it last year, be awarded a contract to mow the road commission property again. And then we are recommending Chandler Outdoors for the Acme State Park. And they've done work for us in the past. They just haven't been the low for the last 2 years for mowing.
Yeah, and then all the MDOT stuff is passed through, right?
It's just a straight pass through. We get reimbursed from them with it, so it doesn't cost us.
Motion to approve the mowing.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Unless you had anything to add, Carl?
Nope, I'm comfortable with this.
Freeman.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Brown, virtual and non-voting, Andrus is absent and excused, and Gilman.
Yes.
And now Phil.
All right, so Phil should.
All right.
The budget amendments.
So one of the last things I let Joe do before he left on Friday was give me some project costs. So I got those accrued in. You can get paid now. So we can get this payroll taken care of. And so I got the year end closed, and we had a lot of projects that we didn't complete that were in last year's budget that we're gonna incorporate into the budget amendment this year. They weren't part of our original 2022. So last year we ended the year with total revenue of $25.4 million. We had $22.2 million of expenditures with a net increase of to our fund balance of $3.1 million. We had the Kingsley facility, in there, some trucks that we didn't receive, and of course the project. So there was about $8 million that we're gonna pick up on this budget amendment. Some of the federal aid projects, we received $205,000 more for COVID money from loss of revenue. The chip seal carryovers are gonna take place this year with STP funds, and then we added moved up Veterans Drive. And name is there's another federal aid project you'll see on the detail that we were able to move up. The other state sources, that's the balance of our wetland mitigation amount. So we got a few more sites that we're gonna work on closing out, hopefully this year. So that's just an offset. There's an expenditure down below. And then the other revenue of $561,000, that's partnership with CRA and the Grand Traverse Band for the Broomhead Bridge. That we awarded the contract to Angels Excavating. On the expenditure side, you'll see an increase of $8 million. That's primarily the carryover projects plus what we anticipated with the roundabouts and the other projects that we were going to complete this year. Fuel prices have gone up, as you know, at the pump. So I put a little more into the fuel. We need fuel to plow snow in the winter and to do our job. So I kind of looked at it. We usually use about $150,000 or 150,000 gallons of fuel in a year. So just kind of put a placeholder out there, and we'll continue to monitor it as fuel is higher than what we typically experience. And then on the capital outlay, most of that was the Kingsley facility carried over from last year that we didn't get started on, and some carryover for trucks. So I provided, kind of what you normally see financial statement wise. And then I also included a list of all the projects that roll up to the $19 million of total projects this year. I did have in there the amounts for the roundabouts. So we could either not adopt this at this meeting and do it at the special meeting, or I can adopt this and just have that money not allocated to any kind of project.
I think if you have the amendment ready, let's move forward with the budget amendment. If we have to make another amendment, we make another.
Yeah, if it's just projects, it's just projects, you know, changing it up. We still have to go through, and engineering is working on the asset management plan and getting costs for the anticipated projects. We don't have that dialed in. So I just had the $4.5 million of millage funds just as a placeholder, and we'll build that list out as we get better information. But it's a pretty busy year. There's a lot of projects, which is a good thing. But it's just getting the manpower to manage it all. But I feel comfortable. I put a lot of work into it. And there's a lot of detail that supports.
Carl, you've received in the packet the budget amendment.
Yep, I've got it here in front of me. Yep. I'm very comfortable with what Phil did. Very comfortable.
I'm good. Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept the
Budget amendment.
budget supports.
Joe and Alan. Kylie?
Underwood,
Yes.
Brown is virtual and not voting. Enders is absent and excused. Lehman
Yes.
and Gilman.
Yes.
Thank you. It's a lot of work. I look at the numbers and they just kind of travel out at me.
Trying to get the information.
All right. Okay, well, that brings us to managers' comments.
All right, so we have got the Paradise Township information going back and forth. Everything is, we're on agreement. We're going to meet with them at their board meeting next month, at which point they're going to be having a public hearing shortly thereafter, and we should be able to move forward. We had a couple of little glitches in the survey, and they got those all straightened out, so we are ready to go, and we should be able to come back in the May meeting with documents, but we'll be talking about it more in detail in April.
I think we're gonna be able to get this built this year.
We're hoping to start it. We should be able to get at least the salt barn up.
Okay.
And that's a big
That's the
thing.
big thing.
Yeah, so that we can have some place that actually is gonna stand for the entire year over the top of our salt. So we did put off the policy meeting because, you know, it was about the commissioners' policies and the two commissioners missing. We felt it would be better to put it off. So, and since there was also policies that do affect the rest of the organization, we decided to put that off until we have the full commission back in place. This morning into afternoon, we had our normal update meeting. Joe came there to introduce himself to the staff as well as observe. And we did a little bit of diversity training today also as part of that. We did it over our lunch period. So it was a very good, very productive. I think the staff got a lot of information, and they feel they were definitely not glassy-eyed, so they were definitely paying attention.
See what happens when I'm not there.
Very innovative approach.
Tomorrow we have our annual worksite safety training also. So we are continuing forward with training, and we will be having additional training sessions throughout the year as we keep moving forward and ensure our folks stay safe. And that's all I have today.
All right, that moves us to commissioners' comments, questions. Carl, let's start with you.
I think we've hit on everything. I was ready to do the policy thing, and I knew it wasn't on the thing, so I had some things there, but I'll have it when we do it at the next meeting.
Joe?
Just one thing, you said the scoop's gonna be ready to go next month?
And within the next couple of months, they are working actively on it. They have a couple little things, they have a couple little glitches that they're working on, but they've been working on it since Monday this week. They've been really hitting it in the office. Our consultant that is part of what was Siemens, and I don't know what they're called now, I'm sorry. Unix. So the consultant from Unix has been in here helping Haley get up to speed with the actual administration of Scoot. And so it's getting very, very close for the airport corridor. We'll let it sit after the airport corridor comes into effect, and she has some time before we add stuff up off of Silver Lake near the middle school.
I've spoken about it. I think we need to hire a couple of engineers. And if we have to pay, I think that should be we're in the business of repairing and building roads. We can't do it without engineers. And if we have to break Phil's arms and shake the money around to get some engineers, that's what we have to have. I really would direct all the effort you could, in my mind, to getting us a couple of, maybe somebody temporary. I know of a retiree who might help for the summer. There are people out there, and if we have to pay more to entice somebody to move to Traverse City. The demand for the services the road commission provides is not dwindling here. It looks bigger in the future than it is now. And I think this is the most important task we can do. We have to have the personnel to do this work.
I'd like to piggyback on that just a little bit, and perhaps we need to take a look at, making sure that we do have the professional services on hand that we are expected to have. And if we have to go through the budget process, as he said, I'm going to be a little kinder, just shake them up a little. But we have, and that also brings me to the other part of it. We have a pretty exceptional team here. I'm proud to work with you guys, and I think that I can speak for the rest of the board that what you do is in the best interest, and you're looking out for the best interest of the taxpayer, and you understand a lot of times what maybe even we don't understand. And so I appreciate your expertise when you give it to us. I just want you guys to understand that. And as I say, I'll defend you if I have to, because if anybody's going to give you grief, it's going to be me. So that's all I have to say about that. And when I say, by the way, no, it's not all I have to say. By the way, our crew, we've got some good people who are here right now, they're our backbone. So nobody abuses the road commission today. That's all I have to say about it. That moves us to our next public comment plate. If anybody has anything that they'd like to say.
Could we maybe reiterate? I know there's some people online that are trying to raise their hand that we can't take comment.
That's fine.
You want to take their comment?
Yeah, let's do that. If some people are raising their hand, I don't mind a little.
All right, Nick, you are available to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, guys, for allowing this. I'm sorry, I need to start attending more of you guys' meetings to understand your procedure. I thought you were still doing stuff via Zoom. So my name's Nick Broad. I'm the project manager for Elmer that bid the roundabout project. I am glad that the discussion got tabled because it seems like there's some misinformation going around. I wanted to be very clear that the alternate that was proposed was a part of the bid process. This was not something negotiated before or after the fact. Addendum 2 stated very clearly that the bidder may propose alternates to the progress schedule and traffic control. Every bidder that bid the project had the opportunity to do so. So you guys, ultimately have the final say on that. We offered something that was 4 weeks less time and $250,000 less. I think that's a pretty significant difference. M&M did not offer an alternate with their bid. You guys talked about Allen Supply not being the low bid, and 5% was the number that was thrown out. We're a local company. We were 0.6% higher on the base bid, and we're 6.4% less than them on the alternate. So I look forward to the opportunity to provide you with the documentation to show that this was part of the bid process. I'm glad the discussion got tabled because I think that once you discuss this with Wayne and the staff, you'll understand the opportunity that every bidder had, and that it was a fair bid process. And I believe our alternate and what we proposed is not anything done that would undermine that bid process. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you. You said you had hands. Are there other hands?
I did, no longer, just Nick.
All right, that brings us to item 9, motion to adjourn. You're adjourned.